Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's dive right in. Today, we're going on an absolutely epic anatomical adventure. We are literally going to follow the incredible 3D journey of a single breath. We'll be shrinking down to fly right through the nasal cavity, all the way down into the microscopic cellular level of your chest. Get ready, because you are about to look at your own body in a completely new way. So, here is our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with nature's breathing blueprints. Then we'll shrink down for the human air filter, travel down the windpipe and lungs, witness gas exchange at the alveoli, and finally wrap up with the physics of a breath. Let's get moving. Section 1. Nature's breathing blueprints. Before we zoom into human anatomy, we really need to step back and look at the grand scheme of things. It all starts with a super fundamental question. Why do we actually breathe? I mean, sure, your first instinct is to say to stay alive, right? But let's get a bit more specific. You see, we eat food, carbs, proteins, fats, and our digestive system breaks all of that down into simpler forms, like glucose. But to actually extract the energy from that glucose so you can run or play or literally just think, we have to oxidize it. That's what true respiration actually is. It's the oxidation of digested food to produce energy. And to pull that off, we absolutely need oxygen. Brilliantly, nature has solved this whole oxygen problem in quite a few different ways as life evolved. Simple, lower organisms like sponges, they just absorb it directly through their entire body surface. Moving up the evolutionary ladder a bit, earthworms evolved to use their moist skin. That's a process called cutaneous respiration. Insects, they rely on a whole network of tracheal tubes. Then you have aquatic life, like fishes, which developed highly vascularized gills for branchial respiration. And finally, complex terrestrial animals like us humans evolve specialized vascularized bags. We call those lungs, and that is pulmonary respiration. Section 2. The human air filter. Let's transition over to the human body now. I want you to imagine shrinking yourself down to the exact size of an oxygen molecule. Your journey is starting right at the front door. Think of the nasal cavity as this highly advanced, built-in air conditioning unit. Because when air enters from the outside, it's almost never perfect. It might be way too cold, too hot, or just full of dust. First, the hair and mucus acts like a filter to trap those impurities. Then, the nasal cavity kicks into AC mode. It actually conditions the air, changing its temperature to perfectly match your internal body heat. It humidifies it too. And as a really cool bonus, this area houses the Schneiderian membrane that is packed with olfactory receptors, which is exactly how you can smell if someone's cooking your favorite meal in the kitchen. Okay, so let's track our oxygen molecule. It enters through the external nares, your nostrils, moves through that conditioning nasal cavity we just talked about, and then drops into the pharynx. The pharynx is a super fascinating intersection. It's basically a common passage for both food and air. It literally starts at the nasopharynx right behind the nose, drops down to the oropharynx behind the mouth, and finally hits the laryngopharynx. Right here, air and food are traveling the exact same highway. Section 3. The windpipe and lungs. Now, obviously, we do not want food going into our lungs. That would be a disaster. As we move deeper into the throat, we reach a critical junction, and it's guarded by this brilliant little flap called the epiglottis. It essentially acts as a lid to keep food out of our airway. And right at the top of this airway is the larynx, also known as the voice box. This actually perfectly illustrates how hormones affect our anatomy. The larynx is made of 9 different cartilages. During puberty in males, a massive surge of testosterone causes one of these, the thyroid cartilage, to thicken and grow. This forms what we all call the Adam's apple, and it thickens the vocal cords, giving males a lower-pitched voice. In females, without that specific hormone surge, the vocal cords stay thinner, which produces a higher pitch. Moving past the voice box, we drop right into the trachea. This is our main windpipe. The inside of this long tunnel is lined with these tiny hair-like structures called cilia. They're constantly beating upwards to sweep out any mucus-trapped dirt that somehow made it past your nose. But I want you to consider the structure supporting this tube. C-shaped cartilaginous rings. Why is C-shape and not a full O-ring? Well, your esophagus, your food pipe, sits right behind it. The open back of that C gives the food pipe room to physically expand when you swallow. Meanwhile, the rigid front makes sure your windpipe never collapses under pressure when you take a really hard breath. It is literally pure engineering genius. But it's worth noting things can go wrong. During an asthma attack, the smooth muscles in the smaller tubes branching off this airway can actually spasm and constrict, which makes it incredibly hard for that air to pass through. Section 4. Gas exchange at the alveoli. From the trachea, we split off into the bronchi, entering the left and right lungs, branching smaller and smaller until we hit the very end of the line. 300 million. That is the astonishing number of microscopic balloon-like air sacs, called alveoli, packed inside your two lungs. Just to put that into perspective, if you were to flatten out all 300 million of these little balloons, they would cover a massive 80 square meters of surface area. That's roughly the size of a tennis court, just folded up inside your chest, dedicated entirely to gas exchange. It's incredible. Though, tragically, respiratory disorders like emphysema can actually destroy these delicate little balloons. That drastically reduces the surface area and makes every single breath a real struggle. Now, for our oxygen molecule to finally make it into your blood, it has to cross what's called the respiratory membrane. It's technically a three-layered hurdle: the alveolar squamous epithelium, the basement substance, and the endothelial squamous epithelium. Sounds thick, right? But it's not. It's incredibly thin, only about 0.2 to 0.5 micrometers. Because this cellular barrier is so unimaginably thin and moist, oxygen diffuses in and carbon dioxide diffuses out almost instantly. Section 5. The physics of a breath. We know exactly where the air goes now, so let's zoom all the way back out. How does the body actually pump this air in and out? To understand the mechanics of breathing, you really just need one rule from chemistry: Boyle's law. It states that the pressure of a gas is inversely proportional to its volume. Let's make that simpler. Think of your chest cavity as a sealed box. If you increase the volume of that box, the pressure inside drops. It's exactly the same physics as drawing back the plunger on a syringe to suck liquid inside. Gases always naturally flow from high pressure to low pressure. So when your chest pressure drops, air from the room around you is literally forced to rush in and fill that void. This pressure dynamic is precisely what your muscles are doing all day long. Inspiration, breathing in, is completely active. A massive muscle at the bottom of your chest, the diaphragm, contracts and pulls downwards. At the same time, muscles between your ribs pull your chest cage outward. This massively increases the volume of your chest box, dropping the pressure, and boom, air gets pulled right into those 300 million alveoli. Expiration, on the other hand, that's entirely passive during normal breathing. You literally just relax those muscles. Your lungs act exactly like a stretched rubber band. They use elastic recoil to snap back, shrinking the volume, raising the pressure, and effortlessly pushing the air back out. And that brings us to the end of our journey, from the conditioning AC unit of your nose, past the brilliant C-shaped rings of your windpipe, all the way down to the massive tennis court-sized surface area of your alveoli. And the whole thing is driven continuously by the elegant physics of Boyle's law. It's a literal miracle, happening thousands and thousands of times a day without you even having to think about it for a second. So let me ask you, will you ever think about the automatic life-sustaining rhythm of those 300 million microscopic balloons inside your chest the same way again? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep exploring, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.